How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is Big Daddy Dave, and this is another Farm Sim Talk. Hope everybody's having a fantastic day so far. I am really excited about this interview here today. I am joined by Rusty Money Gaming. Rusty, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. Thank you, Big Daddy Dave, and thank you for this invitation
Ralph
for this
Fanning Jonah
interview as
donated
well. So,
$1.99
much
through Super Chat.
appreciated. And
How's it
shout
going,
out to
YouTube?
Dust Bunny
This
because
is
I
Big Daddy
believe
Dave.
Dust Bunny just a day after you sent a message wondering if I had knew who you were. So I believe she was gonna be asking me the same question.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Dust Bunny. She's been an absolute rock star in the background trying to get as many people on board with this idea as possible. So, Dust Bunny, thank you very much. So we are going to start this off a little bit different for this particular interview. So I want to start out by saying a big thank you to Rusty for coming onto the show here today, but also a big thank you to Rusty for being the first creator for my channel to show the channel some love. So Rusty, thank you so very much. I greatly appreciate that love that you showed. It was almost 2 years ago now, and it's only gotten bigger and better ever since. So thank you very, very much.
You're much welcome. Just to add a little something to that, and one of the reasons I did that is because occasionally I just love to do random YouTube searches with Farming Simulator, and I'll just show up in some random channel stream and start chatting, and lo and behold, that night or that day, whatever that was, your channel was one of the ones that we went to. Um, I'll even just do that off screen just to see what else I can see in the Farming Simulator community. So.
Well, that's awesome. It's fantastic that you go out and show other people some love, whether it's just for views or whether it's just for, coming on and commenting. That's fantastic that you're active within the community itself. It's really a very special thing. So, not only thank you on my behalf, but thank you for everybody that you've done that for, that you've actually just gone into their channels and just watched. That's fantastic. All right, so we're going to start out with our first segment here, and that's going to be us just kind of walking through who you are. So, starting out with, can you give us a locations and where we can find you?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube, Rusty Money Gaming on YouTube. I also have a Discord channel, Rusty Money. You can contact me just by Rusty Money on Discord, I believe. I can't remember the exact user ID. Um, and then also I am the creator and main admin for a Facebook group called Farming Simulator Challenges. So you can find me via that Facebook group called Farming Simulator Challenges.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much for that. And before we get started, do you want to give anybody any shout outs before we get going?
Um, you know, I really thought about this because this was tough. I watched Why Not, and I watched Farmer Sim, and I watched Gaming Joy's interview with you, and I got a shout out to everybody basically that has supported my channel either as just a first time viewer, a one time viewer, whether it be joining as a member, and a moderator, whoever it be supporting my channel. I got to thank everybody. But to add to that, there is a couple that I just cannot leave out. Um, one of which is a longtime friend of mine who also is a farm sim creator, and that is Bruce's Gaming. I just can't forget to not shout him out because him and I have had some really, really good conversations off camera just about life, and he's like a brother, an older brother, I should say. And going further with that, about only a couple other people. Towboat Fish, one of my main moderators, he's usually busy on the boats on the Mississippi, but I can't leave him out. And my big inspirations, Farmer Cop and RustyGaming. Other than that, thank you to everybody. Um, so
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So, if anybody has any questions for Rusty, please put them in the chat and I'll do my best in between each of the segments to go ahead and read them out. So, really quick, let me see if there's anything up until this point. We do have a $1.99 super chat from Rail Fanning Jonas says, "How's it going, YouTube? This is Big Daddy Dave." Oh, well, thank you, Jonah. Greatly appreciate it and glad you were able to come to the stream here tonight. I know you're working right now, so you were able to sneak away for at least a couple of minutes. So I didn't see anything in my quick scan, so let's go ahead and move on to our first segment. This is Digging Up Dirt. This is a segment where we get to know you as a person outside of the farming simulator content that you do. So it's going to be a little bit more of the personal kind of stuff. And I think there's nothing more personal that can be asked other than what's up with the Nebraska shirt and the San Francisco hat? There's got to be a story behind this.
Well, first off, I'm actually originally from Iowa, and my parents moved my brother and I to Nebraska when I was 6 and when he was 4. So we've grown up in Nebraska, even though we're originally from Iowa. But so that's the reason for the Nebraska shirt. The other reason is for the 49ers shirt. For some that don't know, a lot of Nebraska football players years ago, probably, there was a good selection of Nebraska football players that played for the San Francisco 49ers. And I became a 49ers fan when I was like in second grade. I mean, that's the earliest I can remember watching them. And I've been watching and following the 49ers ever since. So I go clear back to like the Joe Montana era and before that just a little bit, like Ronnie Lott and Roger Craig and Tom Rathman and all great guys, yeah, people I've just admired. Tom Rathman's only an hour and a half from me originally,
Oh, wow.
where I live here in Nebraska. So
Oh, that's fantastic. And yeah, I mean, you lived through the golden age for the 49ers. Like you said, you mentioned the Joe Montanas, the Jerry Rices. Like back in, what was it, like the late 80s, I think it was like the kind of big heyday for like almost everyone I can remember was a 49ers fan back in those days because of the team that they assembled. So I can completely understand that. So is YouTube and content creation your full-time job?
no, no. My full-time job is a parts guy, if you will. So I work in a parts department for a local tractor dealership, ag equipment dealership. Originally family owned, they own 3 stores in northeast Nebraska. And the big part of the business, of course, is case. Also have licensing for Bobcat and Vermeer and Farm Aid and a whole bunch of other different brands of equipment. But the biggest two I would say is Case and Bobcat.
Okay. So would you say that the love for Farming Simulator and the content creation sphere that you're in is that kind of closely tied to why you work for this company, or would you say kind of the other way around? It's like you had a love and affinity for farming prior to this, and it just kind of translated into the Farming Simulator space.
It's a little of both. I've kind of always had interest and love for agriculture. Both of my parents, their parents, my grandparents, both sides of the family, both were farming in Iowa. So I kind of grew up around it, even though we lived here in Nebraska. I mean, I went back during the summer in my teenage years and helped my uncle on the hog farm and helped my other uncle on his farm and baling hay and throwing old square bales and so it's always been in my life. It's just that yeah, this game kind of inspired a little bit more of an interest probably in finding a career in agriculture somehow.
Excellent. So, what kind of home dynamic do you have?
Um, Married. We got 4 kids. So, our oldest is out in western Nebraska and is a history teacher, and then our daughter, she lives kind of out that direction too, and she's a preschool teacher. And then we got 2 younger boys. One actually graduated about 2 years ago now, and he lives here at home yet, but he actually works at the same dealership I do, and he is in what we call the service or tractor shop, and he has taken a diesel apprenticeship course to be a diesel tech, and then our youngest is a sophomore in high school, so we stay pretty busy, you know.
Excellent. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Um, so, how do you balance the work life, home life, and farm sim creation life? What? How do you juggle all those different activities?
Um, to be honest, I don't know how some of those guys that we all watch, like, Farm Sim Guy and Argsy and Farmer Cop, how they do it, with having full-time jobs, because I struggle doing it. Um, actually, prior to my career change 2 years ago, when I was a law enforcement officer here in our local area, I actually had more time to play the game, more time to create videos and get those videos out. Now I have less time because I work an 8 to 5 job more or less Monday through Friday, and then every other weekend on Saturdays. But when I was in law enforcement, I had more days off and they were spread out further. Um, so it's hard to do. I try to only play the game and create videos when my wife is at work. Um, and then on the weekend, I usually get to play and live stream. Live streaming during the week in the evenings has become tough because I can hardly make it to 10 o'clock anymore at night, and it's time to find the bed. Because I'm usually up by 5 a.m. So
Oh, yeah, that would definitely make it a little rough to stay up too late. Getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Ooh. So
yeah.
you mentioned that you were a former law enforcement, and before I proceed any further, I want to first thank you for your service, and I'm sure that your local community thanks you as well. That is a extremely difficult job and not one that is taken lightly. So anybody who does take on that job, me personally, I give huge props to and a large amount of respect to, and I think that they deserve it because it's one of the most difficult jobs and one of the easiest to mess up with. So, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, if you don't mind, I would like to talk about that because as law enforcement, there's so many things that, a officer can see just in their day-to-day life. Can you describe for us what was one of the greatest experiences that you ever had while being a law enforcement?
Oh my goodness.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. Before you answer that question, can you explain what it was that you did? Were you a like a normal town cop, city cop, or were you like behind a desk? What role did you have?
I when I started my career, I was a city officer in a smaller community in here in northeast Nebraska, and uh I worked there in this city department for 3 years. So it was small town policing, you know. I think we only had four full-time officers, if I can remember back then. That was a long time ago. We're talking like almost 25 years ago now. And then after those 3 years, I transitioned and came back here to home and got hired by a sheriff that had
Ralph Fanning
won the
Jonah
new
donated
election for that new
$4.99
year.
through Super
And
Chat.
I worked at the
Rusty, have you
sheriff's
heard of
office here in my
CSX's Law
county where
Enforcement
I
Unit
graduated high school, actually,
3194?
for almost 12 years as a deputy, and was stationed in a community in the northern part of our county, and then had the opportunity to move my family back home and was the station deputy, if you will, for that community, but I could go anywhere in the county if need be. And then it was about, well, 12 years later, then we moved back home where my wife and I both graduated high school from. And I worked as a city police officer again, another small town police department of less than 2,000 people, in the community. So very small town. And worked with two other great guys and a great department. I just kind of got burnt out working nights, being home, being gone from home all the time, and just missed so many things. And went through some things at work, and I just got burnt out. Is the main point to it all. And the opportunity came up to start this career at the dealership, and I went for it. So.
Well, that's fantastic. And like I said, thank you again for your service. So going back, what would you say is one of the best experiences you had while in law enforcement?
Wow. Best experiences. Um, I don't know how to give you a best experience. I'll just say the entire 22 years was a good experience. It's hard to pick out just one incident or situation, because sometimes you can't go into detail.
Of course.
So, there's a couple of good experiences I had in relation to some training I got, um, which was great over those 22 years. But the entire 22 years was priceless, if you will. I met so many great people, worked with some great people. Um, had a lot of positives, some negatives, just like anything, but it was a good career. I do occasionally miss it, but I don't miss it to the point to go back.
Oh,
So,
I could imagine that it would definitely be one of those kind of jobs where every day is new. So it's every day
yeah.
is different, exciting to a certain degree, but I could definitely see how a lot of people could get burned out very quickly. Um, I won't go into the flip side of that question because there's some very dark avenues that can go down, and I don't want to uh, go down there. So let's pull back from the law enforcement and talk about what are some things that you like to do as kind of hobbies. Do you like to go hiking, fishing? You're obviously into sports. I mean, got the cap.
Yeah, I would say my biggest hobby is football, probably. I love NFL football. I don't watch it probably as much as a lot of people. And since getting into this game back in 2019, that's what encompasses my life. But I do pay attention to my 49ers, and Nebraska football. as well as I still have a little a place in my heart for the Iowa Hawkeyes back home in Iowa, in all the sports that they do. Outside of football, um, I got back into bowling.
Okay.
Um, I don't think I talked about it a lot in my videos or live streams, but I know a time or two I did. But a big thing in my life was I actually grew up in a 12-lane house. What I mean by that is my parents owned a bowling alley when my brother and I grew up. So we moved to Nebraska actually for a bowling alley.
Oh wow.
That is how we moved to Nebraska from Iowa. It's because of this bowling alley. And so my mom and dad managed it for a while and then later on in life purchased it and then sold it after my brother and I finished college and moved on with our lives. But so I finally got back into that because when I was in law enforcement, it was tough to do, because I worked mostly night shifts in law enforcement and didn't get time to go do men's bowling league. So bowling would probably be a big part of it now. And then outside of that, I have a huge, huge love for circle track dirt racing. I mean, like your Friday night under the lights, stock cars, late model sprint cars, big following of that. We have a 3/8, I think it's 3/8 mile track here as a part of our fairgrounds, actually. And it's only, as the bird flies, about 8 blocks from my house. So, um, I love racing. That's probably the other big thing. Outside of that, I really don't have any other hobbies. Occasionally I've tried to get back into fishing and hunting, but I just don't.
Okay. So with the racing, is it something that you just prefer to watch, or is it something you prefer to participate in?
Oh, I would love to participate, but it takes too much money.
Oh yeah, yeah it does.
I've always had a little bit of a desire to do it. My favorite cars on dirt are actually late model and sprint cars. But I would love to, do like a what we called here a bomber class. Just pretty much pulling the old car out of the trees, knocking out the windows, putting the fuel tank somewhere safe, putting a roll cage in it, and letting it go around the track. Not get into the street stock where you get everything else, fancy dancy and spend lots of money. But you know, I just love the sport and love watching. That's the biggest part for me.
Well, that's
Um,
sorry. Go ahead.
and I think the what I can remember back in my mind as how I got into it is one of the guys that worked for my mom and dad at the bowling alley. Um, he had a race car, or I should say, he got a race car when he started working for my parents, and he he fixed it at the bowling alley. A small community, um, and it's not like the bowling alley was continuously busy. It was busier in the early years, but not the later years. But anyway, he had the race car parked on the back side of the bowling alley and used this out shed as kind of like his shop, if you will, but did all of his work outside of that shed because the shed didn't have there wasn't room for a race car. So that's where my big enthusiasm for the sport came from, is because whenever he was there, I was always outside watching him work or helping him do stuff.
That's
So,
fantastic. And I've heard it called something else, but the bomber class that you were talking about there, one of the coolest things about that is the fact that that is the one I think that requires the most skill, because when you get into the kind of the tuner classes where you're in the more modern and stuff like that, it's really down to just the engines and all that stuff. But I mean, you could have just an old slobber knocker, beat up vehicle that you're whipping around the
Yep.
track, and it's going to handle incredibly different than any other vehicle that's on that track at that point in time. And it's down to the individual driving it and being able to sling that thing around to get it to where it needs to go. So I agree with you. That's one of the more fun classes to watch, in my opinion. Now, I know you don't have a lot of time for kind of extracurricular activities and stuff like that, but do you get a chance to take in movies or listen to music, or do you have any books that you like to read?
I don't really read. The only thing I was gonna mention in regards to books was I'll just give a special shout out to a cousin of mine. She writes books, probably books that I wouldn't read, but Aaron K. You can look Aaron K up on face or on the internet and see what books she writes. And if you're into that type of thing, it might be a book that you would be interested in. Um, Movies, I don't watch as many movies as I used to. I need to get back into it though, to spend more family time or, just wife and I time. But my favorite movie of all time, I've probably seen it a million times and probably could recite it as it's playing. But that's Days of Thunder. No surprise.
Okay, okay.
My second favorite movie, I should say, would be like a movie series, and because I grew up in that era, is the Transformers. There's nothing better.
I gotcha. I
Nothing
gotcha.
better.
Yeah, I grew up in relatively the same amount of time, so I understand what you're saying there. And what kind of
Uh,
music do you listen to?
Country, big country fan.
Good man.
A couple of my favorites would be my all-time favorite is Cole Swindell. He hasn't had any big time hits lately, but he's my favorite for one of his songs that he sings. Has a special meaning to me. And then I really have started to enjoy a lot of Nico Moon and Luke Combs, of course. A lot of people
Hmm.
like Luke Combs. Who else can I think of? But it goes back to even when I was in high school, I was country, Blackhawk, Nitty Gritty Dirt
Yes.
Band,
Mm-hmm.
Lone Star. Some of those were kind of, I don't want to say one hit wonders, but they just didn't progress. They weren't, how do you want to say it? I guess lucky enough, if you will, to progress forward like some of them have over the years.
Yeah, I recognize all those band names. They certainly weren't, the recipient as much love as say like a Garth Brooks, Tim McGraw, all
Yeah,
those who grew up around the same, around the
yeah.
same time frame. So, yeah, they were good. They were really good bands, but they definitely weren't anywhere near the same league.
I mean, it was even old school when I was in college, but one of my favorite bands probably, and I love the song, and I could just jam to it, turn it up and just chill out, but that would be High Cotton by Alabama.
Yes. Yep. Very good song.
Probably surprising to a lot of people, but I love Alabama and a lot of their songs, and even a lot of the other old time songs. Dust on the Bottle,
Yes.
David Lee Murphy. You know, the movie 8 Seconds was popular when you and I were younger. I don't know if you ever seen the movie 8 Seconds about the bull rider that was
Um.
killed. True
Yes, a
story.
long time ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the song Red Rock and all that stuff that became popular because of that movie. All great music, but yeah, country music number one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Is there any others besides country that you listen to, or is it just pretty much country?
Because of the era that I grew up in, and I'm not much older than you, but 80s rock,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, Def Leppard and I like some Aerosmith from back in the day. That's really not, 80s rock, but who else? AC/DC, but if I was to say my two favorite, it definitely would be country music and 80s rock.
Right there with you. I completely understand. Now, what would you say would be kind of the most obscure or weirdest movie that you've seen in your lifetime?
The reason I laugh is because Mrs. Money and I just watched a movie about 2 weeks ago, and and we watched it because one of her coworkers thought that this movie was hilarious. And it's kind of one of those movies that you, it's got its moments that are funny, but I'll never watch it again. It was a movie about uh Pop Tart, about the Pop Tart, that you can eat for breakfast. The movie was titled, I think it was titled Unfrosted or something like that. You can look it up on Netflix. I'll just say it was so, what is the proper word? Probably so dumb, but it was funny. I mean, it had its moments, but I'll never watch it again. It was weird.
That definitely would seem to be kind of one for the back burner.
Yeah.
So, what would you consider doing if, like, to fill your time, if content creation wasn't an option for you for one reason or another?
Well, I'll tell you this. Prior to content creation, I was still playing games. I would, I'll just leave it as I would go back to probably racing tomorrow. And I say that, I love watching, but I did race, but I raced online.
Okay.
And I would go back to that tomorrow probably. If I wasn't creating content, I would go back to doing that.
And did you have a favorite game that you played that wasn't Farming Sim?
Yeah, what really got me into racing online is an old game on PlayStation 4 called Tony Stewart Sprint Car Racing.
Okay.
Um, it actually is what led to my first creation of my Facebook group, a different one, which was called Racers Odds, and it was spelled Racers for racers, and then odds. And odds was abbreviated for online dirt drivers sharing. So the concept was, as I was trying to come up with this group because I had a lot of friends, just like I do in the FS community now, but I had a lot of friends from all over the world that we were creating and sharing custom setups for this old racing game. And we would get on to these online lobbies and we would build these setups and share them with each other. And it got to the point where I thought, you know what? I'm going to create a Facebook group so we can go in there, we can share our screenshots of our setups and everybody can see them, you know, keep it more keep it more intriguing for everybody. Help somebody else out. So yeah, I would go back to racing tomorrow probably.
Okay. Now, a little bit more of a vague question, but what do you think is not very good that others would disagree with you?
Not very good. And what do you mean by
So,
what's not very good?
what's something that you would point to something and say that thing is either bad or not something that you enjoy, that other people just look at you like you're crazy? Like, oh man, how could you not like X? How could you not like Y? Like, is there like a movie out there? It's like, you know what? I don't like Forrest Gump, kind of
Oh,
thing.
yeah, okay. Yeah. I I really can't think of much, but I'll give you a topic that I know you'll probably laugh at because you're from that era. Is when I was growing up in junior high and high school, the old Ford and Chevy battle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you all think the Ford and Chevy battle these days is something to talk about? No. Go back to the Ford and Chevy battle back in the late 80s and early 90s. That is when there was a big Ford and Chevy battle.
Oh
And
yeah.
and and this guy right here, I am Ford. All Ford. Not saying I've never owned a Chevy before, but uh, uh, that's the other part of me where I was a huge NASCAR guy. I'm not a NASCAR guy no more. Um, it's just changed. I'm kind of a lot one of those many people that lost interest after the tragic accident of Dale Earnhardt. And whew, I'm gonna get choked up here. One of my longtime favorite race car drivers is Rusty Wallace. And Rusty, nothing better than watching Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt fight it at Bristol Motor Speedway. Ford against Chevy. Um, but the opposite of that is, you see the tragic accident of Dale Earnhardt, and people learn all these things about Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt and Darrell Waltrip and Dale Jarrett and uh, all those guys, because everybody saw just them, and they didn't see. You didn't really see like what do I want to say? You didn't really see the other side of everything until after Dale Earnhardt's tragic accident. And what I mean by that is just how much Dale Earnhardt really cared for everybody.
Yeah, I know what you're.
And some of those untold stories came out. Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt were pretty close. More importantly, Kenny Wallace and Dale Earnhardt were really close. You know, um, anyway, I'll get off that soapbox. I could talk about the old NASCAR days for a long time. It's probably one of my missed passions.
And I know exactly what you're talking about. I know several people personally who were huge NASCAR fans, and around that time, that's exactly around the time where they just kind of fell off the boat. There is, you know what? This was the guy to watch. He made the sport, into something more than just racing, and then you find out all the stories behind the scenes, like you were saying. Um, yeah, it was definitely a huge loss for the sport and just in general. So yeah, I 100% understand what you're saying there. I was kind of tangentially a fan of NASCAR back in the day, but wasn't like really deep into it until my father, he started getting into it. And then I would kind of follow along because of what he was following, and then the tragedy happened, and then me personally, I fell out of it too. So I wasn't into it enough to get hooked before that happened. So, in your outside of farm sim life, outside of content creation, what kind of things do you draw inspiration and what kind of things motivate you?
Outside of Farm Sim, um, racing, um, of course. I Yeah, racing. I'm involved in a lot of things outside of Farm Sim, outside of work. You know, I've always been a part of our county fair, and on our fair board since 2007. I run a local Christmas program for kids, um, as what most people would call Toys for Tots. Um, I've been a part of this Christmas program since I was in high school, since I was like a junior in high school. Um, and this year was kind of like my last year, so it was kind of tough. I'm still going to continue to help, but I'm not going to be the main one, like gearheading the project. But so that has always inspired me because I love helping people. I love giving back. I love being that guy that helps, that goes out there and finds out about these people in need or whatever. I don't know. And what else have I done? What else kind of inspires me? Um, my kids do. You know, one of our kids was born ABS. That's amniotic band syndrome. So, like, part of the uterine wall can fall off and attach to your baby and then stop the growth. And so, on my one of our boys, the amniotic band attached to his hand. So, on his hand, he's just got cartilage nubs on four fingers and a thumb. So he doesn't have his fingers in his thumb. And he plays video games. Um,
Oh wow.
he occasionally live streams. The day I helped him learn how to tie his shoe for the first time was an inspiration. Uh, yeah. A few of my longtime viewers have actually seen him live stream because he loves playing Rocket League. Um, you know, there's a lot of things I could go about what inspires me, but those are probably the main ones.
And that's genuinely heartwarming. There's nothing more motivating a factor for a parent than their children. You know, oftentimes people will start out, kind of sedimentary or stationary in their life until they have kids. And then the moment you have a kid, you realize that, wow, I need to do something. And you will go to the ends of the earth and beyond to make sure that that happens, to make sure that they're fed, clothed, all that stuff. So, no, that's 100% an incredible motivator for anybody. So, that's very special, and thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So, to go back just really quickly, we were talking about NASCAR and racing and how much that is of a passion for you. Now, is it the kind of the racing aspect, the competition, or is it the kind of uh, the power and the rawness that can be a part of the sport that kind of is your motivating factor, or not motivating factor, but your kind of draw to it?
It's all of it, in my opinion, because I don't know. I've had some tough times in life, and my favorite place actually is to just go sit in the grandstands and look at the racetrack. I've even done it live once. I, I did a short live stream. I don't remember when it was. A couple of years ago, I was sitting in the grandstands at our racetrack just telling people this was my favorite place. I could just sit there and imagine that the cars are going around the track and the smell of the fuel. There's just nothing better than sitting up in the stands and the smell of race fuel and watching two cars battle, or even better. Um, my wife and I have given some donations to an event that occurs during our fair every year, which is a memorial race. And I always give a donation to oh, now it just escapes me, the Hard Charger Award.
Hmm.
I love sponsoring the Hard Charger, the guy that starts in the back, or I shouldn't say the back, but the guy that passes the most people to get
Mm-hmm.
to the front or to get to his best position in a race. I've been a big Hard Charger fan. Uh, so seeing races like that, I mean, I saw it was actually on my birthday one year, during our fair, a local late model guy here that races Friday nights had a side by side race, and he was racing the high side of the track. I mean, his outside tires had to be just hanging off of the upper apron, just barely hanging on tight. And he was going down that straightaway, slinging it in the corner, and he pulled it off. He beat a car that was built better than his, you know, if they were to go anywhere else. It's just that his car was dug in that night, you know. Whether his car doesn't have as much money put into it, it didn't matter. It was just it was set up right, or the track was right, or all of the above. There's just nothing better than watching that, in my opinion. That's what makes the sport. That's what makes me feel good.
So, if money wasn't an object, you had all the money in the world, what would be your dream car?
A restored 1976 Cutlass.
Oh, okay, okay.
Um, Only because I say that, and I say that without any hesitation, is my brother and I were gifted 1976 Cutlass when we were in high school from our godparents, and it was my godfather's car, and he had restored it, and just we had always, when we went back home to Iowa and visit them, would be like, "Come on, Dad," because we called him Dad, and we called his wife Mom. They were best friends of my parents, still are best friends of my parents, but um, we would just continually, when we go back to see him when we were in Iowa, just be like, "Dad, can we have that car when we get older? Can we have that car when we get older?" Lo and behold, my mom and dad purchased it from my godfather for a little of value, let's say. And my brother and I were just elated, of course, but uh, we were young, you know, thought we had the most powerful car, probably thought we had the loudest car, the coolest car, and then I want to say you make some bad decisions, but you don't think ahead very good. And so who knows where that car is now? Neither my brother or I have it. You know, I always wanted a pickup. My brother always wanted a Dodge Neon. Dodge Neons were popular then,
Mm-hmm.
really popular. And so we both got what we wanted, and we just let the old car go. I would love to have a new one. If money was no object, I would rebuild the car the same way it was, the same as what we had.
I gotcha, I gotcha. So, do you have any pets?
Yeah, we have a dog, um, farm dog Murphy, who's sleeping over there on the couch right now. He's just a little mixed breed puppy, Havanese, Pekingese, and Shih Tzu.
Okay,
So,
sounds like an interesting breed.
yeah.
So, outside of the farming simulator community, who would you say is your favorite creator? Whether that's
Oh, I've
YouTuber, modder, map make. I'm sorry, not modder, map maker. That would be within the realm of Farming Simulator, outside of the realm. So just yeah, YouTuber, Twitcher, anything like that.
I've thought about this pretty hard. Um, and I gotta shout out one in particular, just to say one. But first off, I'm all about small channels and inspire anybody to start their channel and just don't give up. You know, you never know who you might touch in life. You never know who may be watching, and I can get to that later. But there is a ton of FS community YouTube creators I love. But the one that makes me smile and laugh every time I watch, and I gotta shout him out, is Farm Sim Snowy. That would probably be my all-time favorite.
And do you have any creators that you like outside of the realm of Farm Sim?
Yeah, I thought about this too, and I I kind of left out a hobby, but I did competition barbecue for a while, and
Oh.
I need to get back to it. Let's say I kind of burnt myself out. I think I got two Texas style, the big Texas style Traegers sitting out through that doorway on my front porch. Um, but is a YouTube channel called All Things Barbecue.
Ooh,
I
okay.
just love that guy's videos. I could watch them all day. They're just so good. But it's All Things Barbecue on YouTube.
Okay. So competition barbecue. I've never heard of that. Can you kind of elaborate as to what that is?
So competition barbecue is like your. Have you ever seen your Pitmaster show on TV?
Like
Have
bits
you
and
ever heard
pieces?
of Have you ever heard of Big Mo Kassan, or Myron Mixon?
I think I've heard of Big Mo. Yes.
Big Mo, yeah, Big Mo's from Iowa. A great guy. But anyway, competition barbecue is just like your backyard barbecue competitions that your small communities or large communities, wherever you live, have. Competition barbecue usually consists of four categories, one being brisket, two being ribs, three being chicken, and four being pork butt. Those are the usually the four main categories. So beef, chicken, pork, and so on. And then you compete in those four categories and see who has the best brisket, the best rack of ribs, the best pulled pork, and the best chicken. And I got into it because my brother got into it, was the biggest reason I got into it. And we just mainly did small town community barbecue competitions. Here in our community, we had a competition one year with 27 teams. I took first place in ribs. I've taken first place in pork butt before, and taken second place in a category called People's Choice, or not People's Choice is one I'm thinking of. Mystery meat is the one I'm trying to think of. Mystery meat. Mystery meat is you would go to a competition and a community event might have an added category called mystery meat. The only problem is you as the competitor, you don't know what you're cooking. So you are literally packing everything but the kitchen sink, let's say, with you when you go to this competition. And let's just say once you get to this competition, you're given a can of Spam, you're given a pound of, shrimp, or you might be given an octopus. You know,
Oh wow.
uh, I some of the mystery meats I cooked were a can of Spam, octopus actually, uh, mountain oysters. Those are three of them that I can think of, which were all mystery meats, and we had no idea what we were cooking until we got there.
Oh,
It's actually a fun category because it gets your mind to think about what you should do you know, to that food to impress the judges to see if you can win against all these other teams.
that sounds really cool. Now, I think the next question is going to be the most important question that I could ever ask anybody ever. You ready for this one? One, how do I become a judge? just just joking, just joking.
Right?
That honestly sounds like one of the best gigs out there, to be a judge at a competition barbecue. Whew. That's I might have a new dream job. Anyways.
Let's just say if you ever do get the opportunity, just make sure you're hungry because by the time you leave, you will not be hungry.
Again, sounds like a dream job. Oh my goodness. So I think we got time for one more question before we move on to our next segment there. And I think it's going to be what did you do as your first job?
My first job. So like you going clear back to like my first paying job I can think of when we were like teenagers, maybe.
Sure.
My, the first paying job I can actually think of is our golf course, which is down the road that direction. Um, the pro shop there, the what we called the pro shop guy, he always hired these young kids to come out and pick up the range balls and wash the men's and women's golf clubs when they were done with league. So little old Rusty, when I was about 12 years old, probably, or 13, that was my first paying job. I worked at a golf course, picking up range balls and washing clubs.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's going to be a good way to end the first segment there. I want to again thank you for participating in that. And now let's go ahead and go through some of the comments here and see if we can find some questions that we have from the chat. So earlier, Jonah gave a $1.99 super. Oh no, I'm sorry, a $4.99 super chat saying, "Rusty, have you heard of the CSX Law Enforcement Unit 3194?"
No.
Yeah, that's not one I'm familiar with either. Let's see. Let me scan through this just real quick to see if I can find any questions from the chat.
I think
Okay,
Why Not had one, but I don't remember what it was.
I just came across one from Why Not and says, "Do your coworkers call you Rusty Money or your real name?"
Ah, there ain't too many people that even know what my YouTube channel is here in the area I live. So most people actually call me probably my barbecue name, which has been a long time nickname of myself for quite a while, which is Mercury. So
Okay,
occasionally I'll get people that call me Mercury.
nice.
And an old a fire chief, I should say he's still a fire chief in the community that we used to live in. He calls me Mad Dog. So,
Okay. And then I got one more comment. It's not so much a question, but it says Farm Dog Murphy for president. And
yeah, we'll have to tell.
that came from CS Benji 2020. So Benji, thank you so much for
Um,
that. And I'm not seeing any other questions off the top, so we can go ahead and move on to our next segment here, which is called Meat and Potatoes, emphasis on potatoes. This is the getting to know you side from the FS perspective, your creator perspective. So I think probably the question that I have for you is, where did Rusty Money Gaming come from? Specifically, Rusty Money. Where did that come from?
So Rusty Money came from two things that I just put together as one. Uh, Rusty is because, of course, number one, I was a NASCAR fan, heavily involved NASCAR fan. And my all-time favorite driver, of course, was Rusty Wallace. Um, so that's where the Rusty part comes from. The second part of the username comes from, you always hear that comment sometimes, or that phrase that law enforcement officers are underpaid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put the two together, and my money in my pocket's Rusty.
Okay.
So the change in my pocket's Rusty. I don't make a lot.
I
I
gotcha.
don't know, that's the best description I can give you. But the biggest part of it though is because I was a Rusty Wallace fan.
Gotcha. So on your channel, do you only produce farm sim content, or do you branch out into other games or anything like that?
So actually, um, I had deleted all the videos, but I've had a YouTube channel for a long time. I don't even remember what year it was. I tried to be another one of those people that you see on YouTube, like Mo Kassan or Paula Dean, making those kitchen recipe videos. And mine weren't very, let's say, professional. And so that was kind of the biggest reason I actually can remember that I started a YouTube channel. But I had not long ago deleted those or locked them so nobody can view them anymore. Um, but so yeah, I don't know. What was the rest of the question there? Kind of lost track of my train of thought here.
So do
But
you only produce farming simulator content, or do you produce
oh
other
yeah,
styles of
so
content as well?
mainly just farm sim, but towards the end of 22, I started to play one of my racing games. So I was doing some live streams on racing, which there was a few people that really enjoyed it, and I just haven't done it lately, but I'm not like creating videos or anything for it, really. Um, my channel's mainly just farming simulator.
Okay. And how long have you been creating content? When did you start your YouTube channel?
Um, Towards mid the mid release of FS19, so I would say between what, like year one, year and year two, somewhere in there. I can't give you the exact date. My first video, if I remember right, was the start of a Let's Play on the old stream farm. I was had come up with this idea in my mind that I wanted to show people how to build a farm, or I should say, how Rusty builds a farm, because I've always had a lack of, what do you want to say, lack of interest starting on any home farm on any map. No matter what that map is, I don't start on the home farm. I just never have found myself to enjoy the game playing on any home farm. Now, if you're to ask me what two maps or what maps would I play the home farm on, my favorite home farm is the old stream farm.
Yes.
as the only map I can really think of where I actually would enjoy the home farm, or an old map also called Mercury Farms.
Hmm.
I enjoyed that old farm too. But anyway, I had started this Let's Play on the old stream farm. That was probably I think my first video series that I ever created. And getting back to the inspiration thing, especially for anybody new, you never know who's going to watch. Long story short, I ended up finding out that Farmer Cop was watching that series.
Oh, wow.
You know, that was after him and I had connected, and he had asked me about that series and why I discontinued it and why I didn't continue. And it's because I didn't feel like it was doing anything. Little did I know, I should have just kept going. But I still have actually quite a few supporters of my channel that go clear back to that original series I created on the old stream farm. That was way before I got into the whole challenge idea of my channel. And they're still there. They still support me. One of them is that I can think of right now who's been a longtime supporter of my channel and commented on some of those videos on the old stream farm was Billy. Billy, thank you very much. I can't pronounce his last name, but he knows who he is if he ever watches this interview. So
That's fantastic. So I would argue that's one of the most well-known things that you're known for is your challenges and the style of which you play the game. Um, Number one, where did the idea of setting up these challenges come from for your content?
I was really hoping you'd ask this question. This is kind of, I'll try to keep it short, but there is there's special reasons as to why. First off, I started, uh, just like, I shouldn't say anybody, but most people, I really, for some reason, and I don't remember why or when, but I just got on YouTube and came across this channel called Daggerwin, and two other ones that I can think of right now. Number two being DJ Goham, and number three, Mr. Sealy P. But of those three people, the one that I really started watching was Daggerwin on No Man's Land. And I just loved the style of play that he was doing. And I thought, you know what? I got to try this. So I tried it. But I have to be honest. I am probably one of very few people that did not like No Man's Land the first time I played it. And I couldn't figure out why. I just couldn't I still I well, I still can't figure out why I didn't like it at that time. So what I did was is I thought to myself, if Daggerwind can do this on No Man's Land, why can't anybody do this on any map? So then my mind started to click and I started my content and the whole idea of challenges back in FS19. And I started playing on Felsbrunn, and I didn't care for that other map. I think it was called Ravenport, maybe.
Yep.
I did not care for that. Um, and I played on Felsbrunn for a long time before I even decided I should click on that little selection on the home screen that said mod. And I thought, what is that? So I clicked on it, and then, oh my goodness, you see this big library of tractors and trailers and, just everything. And I thought, what is this? And well, I thought to myself, well, I got internet. So I started downloading these things. And the first thing I downloaded, of course, was like the government sign. So I went back to Felsbrunn and got everything I wanted to have, and I instantly thought to myself, okay, I'm losing interest to this game fast. You know, I got to do something. So, excuse me, but so then I went back to the mod hub and looked at maps, and oh my goodness, I couldn't decide on a map to choose. And so the only reason I chose the map, and I still love it today, is because of its name. That's really it. But it was a map by Alien Jim, and it was called Mercury Farms. And the only reason I decided to try that as my first modded map is because my nickname is Mercury. And so I started playing on Mercury Farms and just absolutely fell in love with the map. And then I was searching on YouTube on my phone and searching Mercury Farms, and I think one of the first ones I found was DJ Goham. And DJ Goham was playing on Mercury Farms. And he found the shutoff switch on Mercury Farms to shut the hedges off. And so then I'm like, oh my goodness. Then I really fell in love with the map because you could shut the hedges off. Well, anyway, kind of shorten the story here. I don't know how familiar you are with Mercury Farms,
I'm
but
fairly familiar.
there was that farm that was right across from the store, just directly across from the store. There was an old shed there, just a silo, and I can't remember if there's one other building. And I thought to myself, you know what? That is the one place on Mercury Farms I really hadn't played. So what I did is I bought that piece of land and sold off the silo and the shed and built myself a rustic farm with mods from the mod hub. So in simple terms, I built my own no man's land on Mercury Farms across from the store. And I started with the old Ferguson pack from the mod hub, one of my most favorite mods. And if I could ask for any mod to come back, it would be that one first. Um, and I started with that little gray, no paint, old Ferguson tractor with the front loader. And the whole concept of my play is I had to cut down all the trees that surrounded that plot of land and sell them at the wood chipper. Because in FS19 there was a static wood chipper you could place that you could just put your trees in and it would pay you.
Mm-hmm.
It was a part of the game. It wasn't a part of Alien Jim's mods. And so my concept is I had to sell all the trees at that wood chipper. That was my only income. I couldn't sell anything at the sawmill. So then I shared screenshots and little story paragraphs on different Facebook groups about my progress, and people just fell in love with it. I was quite surprised, let me tell you. I thought, why are they paying attention to little old Rusty? So then I became good friends at that time with Bruce's Gaming and Backwoods and Jethro 440. And I was in a multiplayer mode. Oh, I gotta take a drink. And one of the times we were on Mercury Farms, I was just telling Jethro and Backwoods that I had this idea about, you know, coming up with types of gameplay like I had came up with on Mercury Farms, but coming up with it in a bigger aspect and then sharing that with people. And so I think it was Backwoods said, Rusty, you should just go live with it. And so I thought, okay. So then I had asked Jethro, I'm like, well, I think about making this Facebook group. Would you like to be an admin? And he said, sure. So that's when Farming Simulator Challenges Facebook group was created, was because of those two guys inspiring me to move forward is the big reason why. So then I started sharing my uh, survival farm on Mercury Farms on Facebook in this Facebook group, and people just loved it. And so then over time, I developed other challenges on different maps and have been doing it ever since. And over time, with the help of people in my Facebook group, we came up with a kind of like a outline template that everybody could use if you ever wanted to create a challenge and then share it with everybody. So you could use that outline or template, if you will, to help you create the challenge and then share it with everybody. And so that's kind of how it all started. And the big thing about Mercury Farms is I had to cut down all those trees. That was my only income, and then just build a farm from there. And then the big focus is I had to buy that property that was up by those windmills on
Okay.
where the chicken pens were actually.
Hmm.
And I had to buy that as a second farm, but it was going to be a big red farm. And the emphasis for Big Red was the Lone Oak Buildings pack. So
Okay.
I had to use all of the Lone Oak buildings and build this farm at the end of my play on Mercury Farms. And I did it. And then I ended up doing it in multiplayer mode too with a group of friends. Now we didn't get clear to the end of it because, you lost track of a few people and other people moved on and, I went different directions, but that's how it all started.
I gotcha. That sounds awesome. Now, you'd mentioned before how you started your channel back in FS19, about midway through FS19. Did you start playing Farming Simulator back on FS19, or have you been playing Farming Simulator for years before that?
No, no, I started then. I mean, the only thing I've ever told anybody is I think that it was like probably 6 months or so before that, I had downloaded and installed FS19 and tried to do the tutorial thing on Ravenport. And I was driving this harvester in this wheat field or something, I don't remember. And I thought to myself, oh my God, when am I ever going to get to the other end of the field? I'm only going like 6 mile an hour. I can't do this. So I quit. I'm like, I don't know how people play this game. So then I went back to racing with Tony Stewart's racing game with people online. I actually, you could probably go back to several conversations with my old friends in racing, but I said it more than once. I don't know how somebody could ever drive a harvester across a field in a game at about 5 mile an hour. And look at me now. And I was the guy that said that, you know. So yeah.
Well, it's amazing how when we're younger, we're more into like the action games, whether it's the racing games in your case or the shooter games like Call of Duty, things like that. And then all of a sudden something switches and all of a sudden you want to slow down. You want to not necessarily be driven by the competition as much as you just want to just sit down and relax and enjoy what it is that you're doing. Um, very very similar experience myself, uh, where I would be racing around and be like, oh man, I don't know, I'd get all worked up over it and have a hard time recovering afterwards, and then I discovered Farming Simulator and like, it's could be interesting, but not my cup of tea at first, and very similar to where I had to come back to it afterwards, and yeah, I was hooked ever since. So I completely understand what you're saying there. So going back to the challenges that you do, the reason I say that you're probably most well known for them is because your challenges has actually made itself into the game more than just on a kind of, you know, hey, we exist in a group, and as a group we're going to go ahead and do certain things. You've actually had content make their way into maps and stuff. Would you mind explaining that to us?
Yeah, so uh first off, um the only reason how do I want to say this? First off, there was no self-promotion involved. Um well, number one, because it couldn't be, that we knew of in order for it to happen. So the only way that anybody ever knew that I was the one that created those challenges was friends of mine or friends of those map authors, or also the modder that helped them get it into the maps. Because I didn't want to have it portrayed as me finding a way to become popular. Um, if you know what I mean, because I didn't have any involvement in creating the map at all. But there was two maps in particular. Um, Special shout out to my great friends at the Shanty Boys Map Creations, which is people know as Mr. T-Bone and Matt and Brennan Gaming and Silver Eagle. And all those guys are just, oh, I'd give the skin off of my back to any one of them. I mean, I can get choked up here just talking about them. They mean the world to me. Uh, they've been a part of my life since we all met in FS19. And with the insistence of a modder that became a part of FS in 22, um, there was a couple of challenges that were incorporated on their maps. So you had a map by Matt of the Shanty Boys called Black Water Bottoms. And I had created this farm challenge after his map was first released. And I shared it on YouTube. I shared it in my Facebook group, the whole concept of how to start and how to progress. And then Matt was going to do an update and wanted to include the challenge. And I said, sure, here it is. And so, with the help of Gaming Joy, known as also as Josh, uh, assisted the Shanty Boys in getting the challenge template information, if you will, uh, added into the update to that map. You can see that information on Black Water Bottoms by going to the screen where you can see like the help menu, and it lays out all the details of the challenge. Well, so then basically that map became two maps in one. You had the standard version of Black Water Bottoms, and then you had the Shanty Boys Farm Challenge, which was the second map, because there was a couple of mods that were added as a part of that challenge, with those mod authors blessing to be a part of the map update as well. And then the second map was Split Mountain Ranch by Silver Eagle, where I created a challenge called Shanty Boys Breakfast Challenge. I was a creator of that challenge, and again, with the help of Gaming Joy working with the Shanty Boys. After the next update came out, that challenge was implemented into that map. So then you got the standard version plus the challenge map. And I was the one that created those challenges for both of those maps.
And that's fantastic. And I've had run-ins with Silver Eagle in the past, and one thing, and I always love to tell this story, but he had disclosed on how long it took him to make that map, because most modders, map makers, and etc., they are part-time. You know, they do it in their spare time when they have, you know, a few minutes here and there kind of thing. And he was telling me how it took him over a year, when everything is said and done, to release that map. And I was just absolutely blown away. And then come to find out just a few weeks ago that you were responsible for the integration of the challenge that was in there, the breakfast challenge. I was just dumbfounded. I had no idea personally. So
Yeah.
when I did the interview with Gaming Joy, also known as Josh, and he had mentioned that, it was like, whoa, what rock have I been hiding under? So that was a really cool kind of revelation to come
Yeah.
across. So you'd mentioned how one of your favorite maps was Mercury Farms on FS19. Would you say that you have a favorite map for 22?
Favorite map for 22. Oh my goodness. Um uh Osada. Osada by Rajat G Play. That's probably one of my top favorite. Um Another one because of a challenge that was created by not me, but a great friend of the channel known as Crustu. Um, that map is called Calmlands by ER Shaba.
Mm-hmm.
I had initially created a challenge called the Baker's Dozen, where you had to use the mods from ER Shaba to make donuts on Calmlands. And to be quite honest, I didn't enjoy my challenge. And so I never thought I'd ever go back to Calmlands because I wasn't, what I was trying to do on the map wasn't helping me enjoy the map. So then I tried Crustu's 200 horsepower challenge, and oh my goodness, what I did on Calmlands, I can't thank Crustu enough for creating that 200 horsepower challenge because I had superb happy time playing on Calmlands. I mean, we started with a little of nothing with this challenge, and I just grew that no, enormously. And I started getting the people in my community involved by putting up production points and sell points that I could name, and I would name them after those people. It was a fun series, probably one of my most fun live series as I did in FS22. And I'd have to give you a third one probably. The third one would probably be, oh my goodness, it'd be a tie probably, but be Split Mountain Ranch or Iowa Plains View. Um, I didn't get to spend a lot of time on Iowa Plains View, but shortly after Iowa Plains View came out, I created the Zero to Hero challenge, and there was a lot of people doing it, and the map had enormous updates after that, after we all completed that challenge. And then I did the breakfast challenge on Split Mountain Ranch. And what I did to Split Mountain Ranch in the breakfast challenge is nothing like what Split Mountain Ranch looks like when you load into it. I would inspire anybody watching to go check out, especially my Calmlands gameplay or my Split Mountain Ranch gameplay, if you want to see some, I guess, creative ways to play the game. You know, I'm not saying I'm the best at landscaping, but it is one of the favorite things I love to do. Um, I really love decoration mods. Let's just say.
I gotcha. And the great thing about these challenges that you have set up is that it really does create, well, one, the challenge, but two, it creates an opportunity to overcome and to kind of think about how to play the game outside of what normal ways we might be comfortable with. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about the challenges is that you sit there and you have to come up with all these creative solutions that most of the time most average players they don't have to even think about having to do that. They're just okay. What do I do to make more money to buy the next set of equipment? And that's about as deep as I'd say the average player would get to it. But with these challenges, it really does create a whole new level of complexity to the game, and it's a lot of fun to see people do them and to participate in them. So what would you say is one thing that happened to you in your content creating uh, times where you just never expected to happen? Like the sense of community, any unexpected backlash, things like that. Like, what was something you just weren't prepared for when you first started your channel?
Oh my goodness. Um, can't really think anything that sticks out. Um, the one thing that really comes to my mind that I'll just leave anybody with that is really into FS right now, considering creating a challenge or a channel or just started making a channel is don't give up. And what I mean by is don't give up. And I'm not trying to, you know, preach to the choir, if you will, but I totally did not ever dream of number one, Farmer Cop watching my Let's Play on the old stream farm. And later in life, finding out in FS that he was and that he enjoyed it. The biggest thing that I got out of our conversation when we first met was, as he told me is yeah, there's times where a person might give up on a series or a challenge or whatever it is you're doing in your content creating in FS, but if you can at all come up with some kind of ending. Like the biggest reason I say that is I know there was quite a few people, one of which was me even, that was enjoying Farmer Cop's gameplay on Silver Run Forest, which was very short-lived. And he got busy in real life, other things came up, and it just got to the point where it was too much. But he created a exit video, which was substantial, in my opinion, to concluding that series. Come up with something. I mean, I'm not saying that I have not just given up on a few gameplays, because I have. Most of the ones that I've given up on is because I lost them. And as I play 100% on console, just as you do, and everything I create is 100% console. That includes my thumbnails, which I know could improve by, exporting them and then importing them back to my PlayStation and using some other kind of, uh, editing uh, system or something to improve those thumbnails. But I want to truly try and be 100% console. And I strongly believe in that, no matter if my thumbnails look a little dark, if you will, not as bright. But anyway, the second part of that is also, you never know who might watch your video or your live stream, because probably the happiest moment I can ever think of in all of my live streams was back in FS19 when I started. An alien Jim showed up in my live stream chat. We probably only had a live stream with like 12 people or less, but oh my goodness, I, I was exploding. You just never know who might stop by. Just like I think it was Why Not in his interview. Whew. I'm gonna break down just talking about it. You just never know who might watch. And to put ease of mind at somebody that might be fighting in the military across the pond or protecting those people in California or whoever it is, you just never know what you might do to them. So don't give up. Uh, I inspire anybody to just be your person, be you. If you're having a rough day, yeah, you're having a rough day, but I've had rough days, believe me. Um, I've had some rough times, I've had some up times, but uh, yeah, those are two things right there. Is don't give up, and you don't know who's watching.
No, and that's absolutely amazing bit of advice. Yeah, if the one thing that I've been really loving about this series is hearing these stories. And when I heard that one from Why Not, I literally got chills down my spine. That somebody in the middle of a war like contacted him and said, "Hey, you're helping me." Just wow, just absolutely just almost took my breath away when he said that. And it was extremely powerful. And I love hearing these kind of stories, listening to all the other creators out in the space and what kind of experiences that they've had. It's really awesome.
Just one more quick thing too comes to my mind is if you progress forward like you have been and you continue to do this and you get to 500 subs, you get close to that 1,000, you just never know what will happen. You know, you I've done tons of Rusty Money raids. Um, one included on your channel a long time ago. One included on Why Not Gaming, on so many different channels I can think of, but you know it would have took a longer time to hit 1,000 subs than I thought it would ever take if it wasn't for Argsy Gaming to do an Argsy raid on my birthday live stream just before I hit 1,000. I mean, I think I had like 30 subs or something like that away from 1,000, and that was probably the next biggest thing I can think of where I was totally just shocked. I didn't know Argsy was live at the time that I can recall right now. And his channel rated my channel, and I hit 1,000 subs that day. You just, yeah. There's lots of stories a person could tell. Each one of us could tell.
Oh, absolutely. And that was the other reason why I wanted to start this series is there's got to be every single person out there's got a story. Whatever it is, whether it's inside Farming Simulator, in real life, whatever the case, everybody's got a tale to tell. And that's part of the motivation as well to do this is because I love hearing stories. I love listening to everyone's experiences in this space, and there's been some really cool ones so far. And I hope to keep this up and hope to keep it going. So we talked about your favorite maps, both in FS19 and FS22. What are some of your least favorite maps in both of those games?
A lot of people, hopefully, we won't have any keyboard warriors today, but let's just say that. But
Well,
I've never,
the one thing I will say is just because somebody doesn't necessarily like something doesn't mean that it's bad.
well, no, yeah, correct, correct. I just know that there's somebody watching right now that really loves this map. He's a great friend of mine. He's like an FS father of mine. He already knows I'm talking about him, but I know one of his favorite maps is probably one of those maps that is probably one of my least favorite. But the only reason I can really say it's my least favorite is because I've always been that type of player that doesn't enjoy large scale fields. And most of those large scale fields are on maps that just mainly have medium and large fields. They don't have anything small. Well, one of those that I was always told I should play was Lone Oak.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that after time it's one of my least favorite, but because now what I can tell you is once I further got into the game and discovered mods and all that, that those mods from that map, like the building pack, the animal pins, one of my favorite mod categories of all in the mod hub is actually modded animal pins. I would love, and I know it's not going to happen, just like everybody, but I would love to see Lone Oak Building Pack come to FS25, even though I didn't care for the map. But it's those large scale maps. Like, if I was to pick one map right now, outside of modded maps that I totally despised, was Elm Creek, actually. I did not like Elm Creek. I am from the Midwest in the heart of the US, and Elm Creek was nothing like the Midwest, in my opinion. The best Midwest map right now by Giants is Riverbend Springs.
Agreed.
And I realize that even though I live in the Midwest, that Riverbend Springs doesn't have very many larger style fields. But oh my goodness, high fives. I mean, tremendous high fives to Giant Software because what they did on Riverbend Springs in relation to making the area feel Midwest is 100 times better than Elm Creek. They made things more useful. They paid attention to the places that they decorated. You just didn't drive by a house and just see a house. You drive by a house and you see it fenced off. You see a clothesline in the backyard. You see flower pots sitting on the front porch. I mean, you see cars parked in the driveways. Um, I could go on and on. Riverbend Springs, in my opinion, is besides Silver Run Forest, are the two best maps by Giant Software.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but it seemed like ever since halfway through FS22, Giants cranked it up to 11. There was Silver Run Forest, and that map came out, and that was really an awesome map in my opinion. It was something very much new that I had not experienced in Farming Simulator up until that point. And now we have Hutan Pantai, which I think is absolutely gorgeous. There's Riverbend Springs, which, like you said, is an amazing representation for a small town in the Midwest. You know, and I agree with you 100% about Elm Creek. It was one of those maps that when it was right at the very beginning, I played it because that's what we had.
Yep.
As soon as something else came available, I jumped ship as soon as I could.
Yeah.
But so if you could pick a map, any map whatsoever, and you had the power to say, okay, this map from any point in Farming Simulator history is going to be now created and put into FS25, what map would that be?
I've thought about this hard because I knew you'd ask this question, but and I was trying to think of something different, but I can't. It's got to be Mercury Farms.
I
Just
can
it's
respect
got to
that.
be Mercury Farms.
I can certainly respect that. I would absolutely love to see more Alien Gym maps come to FS25. I mean, me personally, I was a huge fan of Alien Gym. Spectacle Island was my personal favorite, and I hope that we get to see some more from him.
Now, if I was to choose one from 22, oh, that'd just be tough. I mean, because there's so many good ones in 22. I mean, I just recently did a short of 10 maps that I would love to see converted to 25. Um, which were maps that either A, I didn't get much time on, or B, just thought that were neat maps that I thought would be great in 25. So if I was to pick one from 22, I don't even know which one I would pick because there's just so many good ones. I don't know about you, but
Oh my goodness, there was a load of good ones for 22, and that would be a very hard question to answer on the spot. So, I don't
yeah,
blame anybody who kind of defers on these kind of questions because I think there was over 300 plus maps when everything was said and done in FS22. When I stopped creating content for it, I was up and over 300 map
yeah,
tours up until that point. So
yeah.
yeah, to pick from that wealth of maps, it's a difficult question. I completely understand it. So, what was one of the features for FS25 that you were looking most forward to when everything was being announced? We were getting all the slow rolls on the god rays and the fog and all this stuff. What was one of the features that you were most excited about, but it ended up falling drastically short in your opinion?
Hmm. I can't really think of something that's fallen drastically short. The only thing I will say is that I was really kind of looking forward to the whole improved AI and kind of horseplay thing, for console coming now to all platforms because I play on console. But to be quite honest, and my viewers know me, but I just don't use that stuff. I'm one of those guys that I do a lot of it myself. I don't hire very many workers even, unless it's a time of need where I do need some money boost. But I'll drive my own tractors and equipment from the store to the farm, or field to field, or field to sell point. The other thing, if I was to choose any one thing that kind of fell short, I guess, is probably the landscape tool. And the only reason I say that is because it needs improved, and hopefully that is one of the parts that um, is a part of the next update that we're supposed to get really soon. Which, when they say really soon, I'm having suspicions that hopefully we see it this week. You know, but just the use of it. The one thing I will say positive about the landscape tool is the field of view, because I was a big negative content creator about the field of view with the landscape tool in 22 because I missed the field of view from 19 with the
Yes.
landscape tool, you know. Um, the other thing would be is just like before you and I checked the status of how we were going to do this before we went live is I was watching DJ Goham's live, or I shouldn't say live, but recorded community meetup, and one of the things that the Farm Sim guy said during that community meetup interview was things he misses: FS19 seasons.
Yes. Yes. 100% agree
I,
with you there.
I think that needs a drastic improvement. If there's anything to move forward with in FS for the next one, is an improved seasons of some sort. Because the best one ever was is FS19.
So let's explore that vein just really quickly. What feature in the seasons do you miss the most?
From FS19,
Correct.
like I'm not gonna. I don't want to use the word forcing in the wrong way, but let's say strategizing, um, crop rotation, which is like a big thing. Crop rotation, the whole thing of about how you had to kind of plan ahead, or look back, what crop was going to do this compared to another crop doing that. Just that whole crop rotation effect with the year. I can't remember exactly each little setting in each one of those, but I think you know what am referring to. And I think most people watching that played FS19 know what I'm referring to. But the biggest thing for me would be the whole uh, making you strategize with crop rotation.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think the greatest part about that was because there were negative repercussions if you didn't plan properly. It was a system in which you would get bonuses and deficits based on putting a crop in this year, then another crop next year, and so on and so forth. So a potato harvest could take away the nutrients from your wheat harvest for the next year, and then so on and so forth. So you had to sit there and think about, okay, well, if I plant this, I'm going to get a deficient yield in the next season. How much is that going to affect me, kind of thing. I agree with you 100%. That was a great system that they implemented. So, of the maps that have been announced so far for FS25, which one of them have you the most excited?
For modded ones coming,
Correct.
oh my goodness. Um, I'm gonna say because I'm pretty sure it's coming, I just don't know when. And here's why. Is Alma, Missouri by Celebuki. Celebuki is probably, I would say, in my top 10, if not top 5, after playing FS19 and FS22 now, for who my favorite mod authors are. Um, but I never even installed and looked at Alma in 22. So I can't wait to see what Alma is going to look like in 25.
100% agree with you. I always reference Alma as my hometown because it really represented the kind of main drag there of my hometown where I grew up in Michigan, and the American flags waving in the street and just kind of going through that main stretch right there. It just brought me back to home. So it always hit those feelings really hard every time I was on it. So I'm looking forward to it just as much as you are. Now, what feature were you the most excited over for 25? You had mentioned earlier about like the course play and stuff like that. Was that the most excited feature you were before it released, or?
No, my most excitement was just like my great friend Krusty, because I think it was one of his favorite ones too, is buildable objects. So expanding upon the use of the roller coaster in Silver Run Forest and seeing what giants would do. And I realized that I haven't even dug even a foot forward into those yet in 25, simply because of the challenge I created for 25 and how I started it. I have so far to go yet. In 25, I haven't even touched anything with animals yet. I haven't placed an animal pin. I haven't fed an animal. I haven't even uh taken any product, I believe, to any buildable point yet. So I am a long ways to, I think, still broaden my horizon of excitement. And the way I started 25, I absolutely am enjoying it. I cannot get enough of 25. I cannot get enough of Riverbend Springs. I have over 70 some hours, I think, on it, which is pretty low probably compared to a lot of people, but the most time I get to play is on the weekends. But anyway, so that's buildable objects is mine.
And what's one feature or one thing that you wish was in FS25 that just isn't?
FS19 seasons.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
to make it easy, yeah.
There you go. I can respect that. So, what is one of your favorite things to do when playing Farming Simulator? Again, we know that you setting up the challenges and stuff, but more specifically, what is one of the favorite tasks that you like to do? Do you like to mow grass? Do you like to create fields? What's that one thing?
Um, I do enjoy cultivating fields, but also I'm from the Big Red State, the Cornhuskers. Nothing better than harvesting a field of corn. So, I'd say cultivating or harvesting a field of corn.
I gotcha. Adds up. Let's see. And who would you consider to be your favorite modder?
Oh my goodness. Oh, there are so many. And this is a difficult one, and there is some I'd like to shout out just so people know some of my favorites. But first and foremost, I can't thank every modder and the entire farming simulator community, past, present, and future, for all of their time and dedication. This gets briefly back to your comment earlier with Silver Eagle. But I was on a live stream in FS19 with my great friend Mr. T-Bone and asked him about Dark Forest and what time it took. So this is why I say thank you to everybody is he made everybody in my live stream come to the realization that just simple map, and I don't mean to use the word simple, but a forestry map, if you will, that's just trees, your store point, one sell point, and animal dealer. If you were to work at it 24/7, it took him, if I remember his statement correctly from way back then, an entire 3-month period. That is not going to sleep 24/7,
Wow.
just to build Dark Forest. So, with that said, again, I can't thank everybody enough for what time that they put into making these mods, especially for all platforms because I play on console. But some of my favorites, of course, number one is going to be Alien Jim. Um, Number two, I love the Shanty Boys. Um, Number three is probably gonna be like Gaming Joy. He makes some great mods. And then you get into like Celebuki, Rajat G Play. I love the tractors that are built by oh my goodness, now the name just escapes me. Oh, anyway, moving on because I can't remember the name and I feel bad. He made a Dutz bar tractor in FS19. It was went up to like 135 horsepower. I can't remember his name now, but anyway, I just love his tractors. He's had Red Cat, Red Cat.
Yes. Okay.
Shout out to Red Cat. I love your mods. But more importantly, too, I can't forget about those modders, and I know there's a lot of people that can't forget them that make us those old vintage type mods. Like, I love me some Peter J, some EY modding, some Rooster. There's so many more a person could name, but those are just a few, I guess, for people. that know what I like.
And there's some great ones out there. All those names I recognize, and every single one of them, I agree with you. They're great modders. Now, the last question I have for this segment is: if you had the ability to make a map that's based off of real life, where would you base it off of and why?
Whew. You're almost gonna break me, Dave, because I've thought about this really hard and I was trying to not choose this one, but I gotta choose it. And because I'll just say it would be because of my influence from Bruce's gaming, and shout out to Bruce, is that I would have to bring everybody Grandpa's Farm. That would be
Gotcha.
the name of it. It would be my grandpa's farm located back home in Iowa, and I would have everything on there. I would have Grandpa JR's, Grandpa Carl's, I would have my uncle's farms. They would all be on there. It would be like an Iowa style feel of a map, but that's what it would be.
I gotcha. I gotcha. That
Be- and I guess the reason for that, because you don't know this probably, is and a few other people probably don't, is my grandfather, when I was in like junior high, um, this would have been like the late 70s, early 80s, just before the farming depression that a lot of people might be familiar with, especially the older generation, is that my grandfather produced ethanol on the family farm and was using it in his tractors and using it as a byproduct to make feed for the cattle and made the Iowa news and made headlines in the newspapers. And there was a biography thing that used to sit in a museum in Iowa. So, yeah, it's got to be Grandpa's farm.
that's excellent. That's again more stories I love hearing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
So, like I said, I think that is going to wrap up that segment there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the chat and see what everyone's saying up until this point. See if I can find any questions. Again, if you got them, go ahead and throw them in there so we can get them answered. I'm doing a quick scan. Do, 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 do. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions per se. More statements. Anyways, so now we're going to start wrapping things up and go into the last segment. This is the That's a Silage Wrap. And we already looked for some questions from the audience there. Do you have any future plans or projects for your channel? Any future challenges that you care to share with us?
Well, challenges I really can't like share those with anybody because I don't know. I'll give you an idea though. If I was to choose some of my past challenges, and I shouldn't say just mine, but other people's, because since creating these challenges and sharing them and the creation of my Facebook group called Farming Simulator Challenges, I've actually enjoyed several other challenges that were created by other great friends in my Facebook group and or also FS creators on YouTube or wherever. But if but I'll just tell you some of my probably my top 3 that I'd like to return is I want to do and bring back another what I'm going to call for everybody watching a Daggerwin play by Rusty Money, but it would be my survival farm on Mercury Farms. I want to do another similar gameplay, which is going to entail waiting for a lot of mods to come into the mod hub here in 25. I would love to do another one of those types of gameplays, come up with a challenge with it, and share it with everybody. Number two would probably have to be like a no tractor challenge.
Wow.
So I don't know if you remember because I think I saw you in a couple of my live streams, but I did a no tractor challenge in FS22 on Maple Farm shortly after it was released. And the tractor that I used, which was a no tractor, was a harvester. I used a harvester for all of everything I did on that farm. So I was not only just harvesting with my harvester, but I was plowing, cultivating, seeding, planting, all that great stuff. And my main piece of machine was a harvester.
Oh wow. So you're literally, so were you hooking up to like what like the snuffle stuck and having some kind of
Well,
3-point implement on
so
the back
I'll
of it, or?
just say uh, I'm not a I'm not going to say I'm not a big fan of the snuffle stuck and it doesn't work. It's a great mod, but my favorite that helped me was
Ken
actually
Adam
the
donated
harvester
2 New
itself.
Zealand dollars through Super Chat.
Had
What is
kind
Rusty's
of
biggest
a
crop harvest?
hidden PTO feature, hidden power. Some of it came because of another great mod that I hope comes back to 25 is a front lifter.
Okay.
You know, I used a front lifter attached to the rear end of this harvester, but I didn't always have to have the front lifter attached to the rear end of the harvester where you connect your header trailer to, you know. That was my hookup point. But yeah, I would love to maybe do some kind of no tractor challenge again. And third, probably would be I don't know if it'd be a repeat, but I'd love to try and do my own kind of I'm gonna use my great friend Farm Sim Snowy as an example, but some kind of like vintage experiment or vintage survival. I love the old equipment. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, where I'm gonna do it, but those are three things to look forward to in regards to challenges. Role plays, I'm gonna kind of step away from a little bit. Um, I know viewers are gonna want to see the return of Grandpa. I do a role play where I do kind of a weird, funny grandpa's voice, and that will probably return. Um, but if it returns, it's going to be incorporated into a role play that I have an idea with. I'll just say that I have now also with gift cards from Christmas purchased FS17.
Very nice.
So there may be a little bit of some kind of role play connected to 25, may involve a few other things, but Grandpa's return. And yeah, I don't want to divulge too much, but I have an idea. I just don't know how well it's going to work.
All right. Well, I certainly won't pry too hard. We did get one question from a super chat from Ken Adlam. Ken, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. With a $2 New Zealand dollar or New Zealand bucks, I'm not sure what they're referred to as. What is Rusty's biggest crop harvest? So, what was your largest
Biggest.
crop harvest?
Oh my goodness. Um, I'd have to say it was on Calmlands probably that I can remember. And it probably was we had done a corn harvest to supply to Eric's corn dryer point. And the reason I say Eric is Eric's the moderator of my channel, and I just named that sell point after him. as I do with a lot of my gameplays, I name it after my moderators and also my viewers or members of my channel. So I think it was a cornfield harvest on Calmlands in FS22.
Excellent. So I want to thank everybody out there who has participated here today, who has followed along in the chat, who has submitted questions. Greatly appreciate every single one of you. Can you let people know where to find you again?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube, known as Rusty Money Gaming, also on Discord, Rusty Money. And then also, I'm the creator and admin of the Facebook group Farming Simulator Challenges. So you can get in touch with me there too. Um, Outside of that, I don't have any other uh, connections other than those viewers that do know my real name and my real contact on Facebook. So,
Okay. Well, Rusty, I want to thank you so very much. I had an absolute blast here today interviewing you and getting to know you a little bit better, and I really hope that you had fun too.
yeah, it was great. It was great. I
Now,
can't thank you enough for this opportunity. So,
oh, it was absolutely my pleasure. And if there's anybody out there that anybody would like me to reach out to contact, and try and get on this channel in order to have an interview with, go ahead and reach out to me in a DM in my Discord or anything along those lines, and drop me a name. Let me know who they are and how to get a hold of them, so that way we can attempt to contact them and see if they'd be willing and interested to come on to the Farm Sim Talk. But I had an absolute blast. I really appreciate it, Rusty, as always. And I hope you all had a blast as well. If you did, please show me by liking, sharing, subscribing, following, commenting, doing all the things the algorithms enjoy you doing. The shows you're engaged with this channel, enjoying the content. And that being said, I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Take care. Hey, Rusty, hang on for just 1 second until after the outro, and I'll catch up with you on the other side, okay?
sounds great. See you all later.
Take care, everyone.